Browns versus Ravens week 1. Since this was announced on the schedule, I have been excited to see this. Probably because the high point of last season was at the exact same place that this game took place in last year, at M&T Bank Stadium, except for there won't be fans there. There won't be as much atmosphere, but there will be two really good football teams that go head-to-head on that day. So who's going to come out on top? Who has the edge? What should we look for in this dynamite week 1 matchup? Well, let's talk about that. Real quick, before I get into this preview, I want to make sure you guys hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and ding that notification bell so you can be notified when I upload. Going to be a ton of content coming up for next week's game and the week's game after that, so make sure you're subscribed and notified so you don't miss a single thing. So this year, I'm going to do these game previews a little bit different than I did last year. Instead of breaking them into so many parts, I'm going to break this into key players, position groups, the key things for each team, and then we're going to walk into a prediction, and I have a little bit of a surprise for that. So the first thing we're going to talk about, or the first player we're going to talk about, is one of the key players for the Cleveland Browns. That's Baker Mayfield. Now, what do I think Baker Mayfield needs to do, or the Browns need to accomplish with Baker Mayfield to win this game? And quite simply, it's a number that Baker Mayfield needs to achieve. Now, I said earlier in one of my videos that I would love to see this team go 500 and 500. What that means is that Baker Mayfield will have less than 500 pass attempts at the end of the season, or equal to 500, and that Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt will both combine for at least 500 rushing attempts. This is because if that's the outcome, right, if that's how the offense looks at the end of the year, you're looking at a playoff football team. Now, the good news is that that's what it looks like they're going to plan to do. Now, how will the execution look? We'll find out on Sunday, but one of the key things in making sure the Browns stick to that offensive plan, especially against a team like Baltimore, is that Baker Mayfield has to stay beneath 35 pass attempts. He can get to 35 pass attempts. He can get a little bit above it, but he sure as hell should not hit 40 pass attempts. You want to keep him underneath 35 pass attempts. That's his sweet spot. And this isn't just me saying this because, oh, I'm afraid of Baker throwing an interception. There's actual numbers behind this thought. When Baker Mayfield has 35 or less passing attempts, he is 10-6 in the NFL. That is a winning playoff quarterback right there when he's under 35 passing attempts. And a lot of people are going to say, oh, well, you know, the passing attempts, like, that just means that the Browns are winning more often. Teams tend to pass less when they're winning, so it doesn't really mean that. I would rebuttal by saying, one, the Browns did not pass when they were winning last year. They tended to pass more when they were winning. Check the game against Miami where they threw 37 times in a blowout. So that doesn't really ring true with the offenses that Baker Mayfield has been in. And two, if you look at the stats, it tells a very clear story about Baker Mayfield here. Because when Baker Mayfield is throwing the ball more than 35 times a game, he has a 3-11 record, and his stat line is quite frankly horrendous. He has a 61% completion percentage, 23 touchdowns, 21 interceptions. That's how bad Baker Mayfield is when you throw the ball with him over 35 times. He's bad. And those 23 touchdowns, keep in mind, are with more games, so more opportunities, more passing attempts to get touchdowns. Only 23. He's a worse player when you throw the ball more with him. To get the best out of Baker Mayfield, he has to be at or under 35 pass attempts, because when he's at that number, he has 61% completion percentage, 26 touchdowns, so more with less games, and 14 interceptions. So what does that mean, right? The completion percentage stays the same, but the touchdowns and the interceptions, they go in the directions that you want them to go in. What does that say? The decision making is so much better with less interceptions and more touchdowns. Like, and if you look at that stat line, when he's under 35 pass attempts, that's the Baker Mayfield that we saw quite literally his rookie year. Like, that's the exact same amount of touchdowns and interceptions. And he went 5-3 in 8 games in that rookie year. So obviously 8 times 2, that's 16 games. It would be 10-6. That's the Baker Mayfield you get when you keep him 35 and under pass attempts. It did not change that much last year. The fall off that happened with Baker Mayfield was not some kind of mystery. It's not like there isn't tangible numbers and evidence that show you exactly where this offense went wrong with Baker Mayfield. It's clear, and it looks like with how the offense is structured this year, they're on their way to correcting that, which means that Baker Mayfield should see 35 or less pass attempts in this game. And if he does, he's a 10-6 quarterback. Tight ends were such an understated part of why the season went so wrong last year. Of course, there's the dysfunction, but that dysfunction led to roster mismanagement, bad roster building at the end of the day. And part of that bad roster build was with the tight end position. Because I said this all last year, they don't have any blocking tight ends on that team in 2019. And that led to a lot of issues with the protection. Look, if you look at the Browns offensive line from 2019 and you look at that offensive line from 2018, one was good, one was bad. Both had the exact same players except for Kevin Zeitler. And I don't think Kevin Zeitler was the reason why this offensive line went from one of the better ones to one of the worst ones. I think it was because they got rid of guys like Darren Fells. Good blocking tight ends that could help in protections and help block up these play actions and sometimes even skirt out to the side to give Baker Mayfield an option if he doesn't have somebody available downfield. That was completely missing from last year's offense. That is now back in spades and better than it's ever been before. Austin Hooper, Harrison Bryant, Stephen Carlson as a good blocking tight end who can also receive and catch a little bit. And then you got the wild card David Njoku, who quite frankly I have no idea what you're going to see from him. You could see a special package from him. You could see absolutely nothing from him. It could be either way with him. But the tight ends are going to be a huge part in this game. Everybody remembers last year what Nick Chubb did to this Ravens defense and what Jarvis Landry did to this Ravens defense. But what rarely gets spoken about is what Ricky Seals-Jones, the tight end, did last year against this Ravens offense. I believe he had a touchdown for like 83 yards. That tells you there's a vulnerability of that Ravens defense. And if you take advantage of that, I think it opens up Jarvis Landry a little bit more. It opens up Nick Chubb a little bit more. It softens this Ravens defense enough to where you can do things. Because I don't think you're going to be able to run the ball a ton against this team in their base look. They're really good. Calais Campbell, Brandon Williams, Derek Wolfe, all in that middle at that defensive line. It's going to be hard to get yards in there. Like, I don't care how good the interior of this offensive line is. It's not going to push around those guys. Those guys have never gotten pushed around a day in their career. You're not going to push them around that much. You might be able to get on the edge a little bit with Kareem Hunt and with Nick Chubb. So if you want to open that up, you have to take advantage of where I think you can take advantage of this team, and that's their weak spots. Their inexperience at free safety and linebacker. And how do you do that? Play action pass, running back pass, tight end passes, because those are the position groups that those linebackers and that free safety is going to have to cover throughout the game. And that's where you can take advantage of this Ravens defense. If the Browns do that and get the ball to their tight end or even their running back in the pass game, it's going to soften up this ground game for the Browns and Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt in order to open things up against this stout Ravens defensive line to be able to run the ball. So that's going to be a huge thing for the Cleveland Browns. I think how this tight end group performs will be absolutely massive to the Browns' chances. If Austin Hooper starts this game out hot, you're in for a good day if you're a Cleveland Browns, because that opens up the entire offense, that opens up the ground game, that opens up so much for this team. If Austin Hooper can't get going, if Harrison Bryant can't get going, if none of the running backs out the backfield can get anything going in the receiving game, then you might have a little bit of an issue. Then you might have a little bit of a problem with the offense. But if you can't get those things going, the play action is going to start working. Everything else is going to start working off of that, and you'll be in a good place. The next item I want to talk about is this is going to be real short. But the only guy on this defense that's athletic enough, good enough, and capable of doing anything about Lamar Jackson is Myles Garrett. There's no ifs, ands, or but about that. I'll talk more about Myles Garrett in the Ravens section, quite honestly, of this part of this preview. But yeah, Myles Garrett's going to be the only guy who's going to do anything about Lamar Jackson on this defense. Everybody else has their hands full with their own position group. Myles Garrett's the only one who can stand out and do something about it. The Ravens' first thing they're going to have to watch is Orlando Brown in the right side of this offensive line. Last year, this was a great offensive line unit, but no Marshall Yanda leaves a young Orlando Brown out there without the Hall of Fame help he once had. Now, let's kind of take a deeper dive on Orlando Brown. Who is Orlando Brown? Well, he's somebody who slid in the draft because he had slow feet. Now, when you have slow feet as an offensive tackle, if you have Hall of Fame help at your right guard position when you're a right tackle, it helps you out a little bit. It allows you to cheat and make up for your feet because you don't have to be worried about somebody beating you towards that guard because you know you have help and really good help at that. So your feet kind of don't matter as much. But now he doesn't even have Pro Bowl help next to him. He has winner of a competition in week 4 of training camp help, which is not great help. Let's be honest here. Orlando Brown didn't see much of Myles Garrett on the right side of that offensive line last year because Marshall Yanda was there. You don't want to send Myles at a place where he has half of his pass rushing moves kind of cut off because the right guard is really good. Now, that's not really the case, so he's going to see a ton of Myles Garrett, and he's not going to have great help. And Orlando Brown, as a player, is not a good matchup with Myles Garrett because Myles Garrett tends to dominate really big offensive tackles. Those are the guys that he really likes to go after. Villanova in Pittsburgh is a prime example of a really big, really skilled offensive lineman with good feet that Myles dominates every year because he just loves playing those big guys. Myles going to have a lot of his bag available to him against Orlando Brown, and that might be a problem for this Ravens offense, and Myles Garrett might be able to run free. This is going to be a test for Orlando Brown to see how he can compensate because, again, the feet were an issue when he was in this draft process. I don't think that went away. I don't think he got more athletic. I think he just had it made up for with the help that he had. Now it's his time to prove that the feet aren't an issue anymore, and he will get to prove it against one of the best in the NFL in Myles Garrett, which could be a huge problem for this Ravens offense. Second thing for this Ravens team that will be critical is Deshaun Elliott and Patrick Queen. These are the two new guys in town. Like, this defense is really, really good, except for these two question marks. Now, Patrick Queen has a ton of potential. He could be very good, but we don't know. He's a rookie. You don't know what he's going to do out there, and he's going to be inexperienced, and he's going to make rookie mistakes. Deshaun Elliott, not a rookie, but played like 4 games, so not a lot of game experience. He's going to make some mistakes. He's going to make some rookie mistakes, and you're going to make a lot of those mistakes against a team that plays a ton of play action. These are the two wild cards for this team, because if these two are in the spots that they're supposed to, don't get fooled and look like experienced vets out there, this defense will not be penetrated. Like, they'll be fine for the rest of the game. But if they look bad, if they're caught off guard, if they're caught slipping, this could be a bad day for the Ravens defense, because then they have to adjust and switch up things and move guys around, and then that's going to add more chaos, more confusion, and that's going to be where the Browns are going to win more often. Nobody knows how good these guys are yet. Nobody knows how effective they'll be in a real game, so they're going to be a massive question mark for this defense. The last thing I would say for the Baltimore Ravens is obviously Lamar Jackson. What's this offense going to look like, right? Because they kept less tight ends. They kept 2 tight ends and 6 receivers. Does that mean they're changing the offense to focus on the receivers more than the tight ends? Because anybody who watched a good amount of Baltimore last year, especially when they got going, was that Lamar Jackson likes to hit his tight ends. Lamar Jackson likes to use his tight ends a lot more often than he uses wide receivers. His tight end was his leading receiver last year. Lamar loves his tight ends. I don't even think it's a roster thing, right? Because they do have better tight ends than they do have wide receivers. I think it has to do with what Lamar likes. Like, even in the Pro Bowl, as silly as that sounds, when Lamar was moving the ball in the Pro Bowl, he was throwing to tight ends because he's comfortable with tight ends. That's what he likes to do. That's where he's comfortable. That's where he's most deadly. That's where he's most accurate as a passer, on those seams to those tight ends. It looks like they might be toning that down a little bit. It looks like by keeping only 2 tight ends, they might be running the ball a little bit less. It looks like with drafting 2 wide receivers and hoping that Marquise Brown has a breakout year, that they're going to be relying on these wide receivers a lot more than they did last year. And right now, as everything stands, I take that over them throwing to their tight ends, because when they were throwing to their tight ends and running the ball a ton, they were unstoppable. Now, I don't know what that offense is going to be. It could be unstoppable again. It could be very good, but it's not what they did last year. And I know for a fact that this Browns team does not have an answer for what they did last year. So if they do anything other than that, this could be good for the Browns. But I'll add the caveat that if they can add these wide receivers and as successful at doing that as they were with the tight ends, this adds a new dimension to Baltimore, right? They're going to be able to move the ball a lot more efficiently. They're going to be able to play back from behind a lot more easily. Like, this would be huge for Baltimore if they can get the pass game and the wide receivers more involved. I understand why they want to do that, but just as a week one kind of thing, I think that is actually a good thing for the Browns as far as week one goes, because I'll tell you right now, the linebackers ain't good enough to do anything about what the Ravens dominated with last year, and it looks like they're moving away from that, which can actually be good for the Browns, but it's going to be interesting to see how this all lines up. Now let's talk about final predictions, and to do that, I brought in some guest predictions from some other people that you may or may not know. Let's hear from them.
So the Browns are going to be taking on the Ravens this Sunday, and this is why it concerns me greatly. We know that the Ravens' offense is going to be good. We know that Lamar Jackson's going to be good. And we also know that the Browns' defense, at least on paper, looks like it's going to be very bad. So the Ravens are going to score a lot of points on the Browns. I can almost guarantee that. So Baker Mayfield and this brand new offense with a brand new head coach and offensive coordinator in Alex Van Pelt and Kevin Stefanski, they are going to have to try to keep up despite the fact that they've done no work in the preseason, obviously. It's week one. We're a new team, new regime again. We're going up against one of the best elite offenses in the NFL. I just don't think the Browns are going to be ready enough, so sadly, I'm going to have to pick the Baltimore Ravens.
Thank you, Quincy, for letting me be here, part of your show again. My name is Sunny from SCG Sport and the AFC North Talk. Yo, this is going to be a fun one. So we're talking about two powerhouses, in my opinion, on the AFC, two teams that are going to compete for the playoffs and probably battle for the AFC North, or I do think the Ravens will prevail on the AFC North race. Now, week one, on this pandemic time, who knows really what's going to happen. But I think if I see the matchups, offense against defense, the Ravens offense matchups really good against the Browns defense. You think the Ravens should run and pound the middle, and then that should open play action for the passes over the top. And then if you just flip it to the other side, the Ravens defense, look, and they have the corners to match up man on man against the corners, against the wide receivers, and then the Ravens bulked up to be a better run defensive team. I think the Ravens are going to stop the run. Now, there's a couple places where the Browns could exploit the Ravens. The middle linebackers are rookies. So I expect the Browns to test them early, put Kareem Hunt over there, and see how he can, if he can beat Queen or not. And also over the top with Elliott. I'm also expecting that, but rest assured, I think the Ravens also are going to be blitz and test Wills and see how Wills can react against good blitzes and stunts and all that. Anyway, my final score, 30-18. Ravens.
So for the Ravens, look for the X factor to be this running game. I know it seems like an obvious answer, but it is what it is. I do think that the Ravens will be able to get that running game going, especially against this weaker linebacking unit for the Browns, this weaker defensive line. There's question marks on the defensive side of the ball. Obviously, with Myles Garrett, they will be a better unit, but I still think that you have to be concerned about your defense going up against this Ravens rushing attack. I think J.K. Dobbins alone is absolutely terrifying, the idea of J.K. Dobbins in this system, and of course Lamar Jackson with the read option. It's tough to stop. So that's what I would be looking out for on the Ravens side. For the Browns, I think that they should be looking to test some of the young players that the Ravens do have on defense. Now that Earl Thomas is gone, we're expecting Deshaun Elliott to step up, and I'm not sure whether he's a safe player, if he plays it safe, or if he's going to take a lot of chances. So I think that that's what you got to test out for sure. Also, we got to mention that Patrick Queen is a rookie, and he is expected to start at middle linebacker. You should be definitely looking to test him as well. So that's what would be the X factor for the Browns side. Now, if I have to give a score prediction, I think that the Ravens will take this one 33-21. I think that the running game will be a little too much, but the Browns will look decent, and it might be a close game up until about the end of the third quarter is what I would guess. So, there you go.
Hey Quincy, thanks for having me on. My prediction for the game is this. I think the Baltimore Ravens realize that last year we beat them primarily on the ground and then ended up putting the game away with some really long Nick Chubb runs. They're going to do everything they can to stack the box and make it very difficult for us to get started on the ground with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. I think we're going to be anticipating that, and we're going to be running a lot of 2 tight end sets. I think we're going to be just fine. We have plenty of weapons, plenty of options on offense, and I think the Browns are going to do well and still win the game. Predicting Browns win in Baltimore, 2nd year in a row. Go Browns.
Ravens and Browns this coming Sunday. This should be a good one. First game of the season, a division game, straight from M&T Bank Stadium. I'm picking the Ravens to come out on top. I think it'll be close throughout the first half, and then in the second half, they start taking off. But I wouldn't be surprised if it comes down to the wire. But I'm still taking the Ravens, and their biggest key to stopping the Browns, to beating the Browns this Sunday, stop Nick Chubb, and also stop newly signed or newly extended running back Kareem Hunt as well. You got to stop the Browns running game, make them one-dimensional, and make Baker pass it to Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry, and hopefully he won't have any success doing so.
I think the Browns are actually going to win this game. I think they're going to win 28-24. Here are my main reasons why. I think the play action will be able to kind of take advantage of the inexperience on the starting defense, that they'll be able to open the run up by doing that. I think they'll be able to move around Myles Garrett, which will free him up to do more about Lamar Jackson, which will hopefully make up for some of the holes in this defense, mainly at linebacker and with some of the secondary. So I think Myles Garrett's going to play a huge role in not stopping the Ravens, but help containing the Ravens, getting a key stop here and there. And I think this offense is going to be able to look good with some of the holes in the Ravens defense, which is why I think they're going to be 28-24. But let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Again, guys, thank you for watching. Have a great day. Have a good night.